Welcome to the Deep Dive. This is where we cut through all the noise and really give you the essential knowledge you need, and fast. Today, we're tackling, well, arguably one of the most foundational skills for navigating modern life. We're getting started with mindfulness and meditation.
Yeah, it's definitely a topic that gets clouded by a lot of jargon, sometimes misinformation. So our goal today is really precision. We want to give you a clear, practical, and importantly, scientific roadmap. One that, connects simple things like breathing exercises to actual fundamental changes in your brain, measurable changes.
Exactly. We want to hand you the blueprint for building that awareness, that focus, but without all the fluff. But okay, before we get into the heavier science and the how-to stuff, we probably need to lay a really clean foundation. Like, what exactly are we even talking about here? These terms get thrown around a lot.
Good starting point. Let's begin with the big picture. Mindfulness. So mindfulness is basically this human ability that honestly we all have. It's about being fully present. It's that capacity to just pay attention to what's happening right now, your senses, thoughts, emotions, without getting totally swept away by them or, instantly judging them. It's innate in us, but like any muscle, it needs training to become readily available.
Okay, so mindfulness is that state of being present. How does meditation fit into that picture then?
Okay. So meditation is really the training ground for mindfulness. Think of it like the gym. It's the sort of formal exploration of that state. When you meditate, you're deliberately practicing observation. You sit, you explore your thoughts, your physical sensations, ideally with curiosity and kindness. And you often use something simple like your breath as an anchor, something to keep you tethered to the present moment.
Okay, right. Let's unpack that a bit more. Because for, centuries, this whole area was seen as maybe purely spiritual, or just a decent way to relax. But here's where the data just changes the game entirely. The practice doesn't just feel good. It seems it literally remodels the physical structure of your brain.
Exactly. This is where we get into neuroplasticity, which is just this incredible reality that your brain physically changes based on what you do repeatedly. It's not fixed. So when you regularly practice mindfulness, you are actively training your brain to be, structurally different. And that leads to pretty permanent shifts in how you perceive the world, how you react to things.
And the specific changes the sources are detailing, they're fascinating because they seem to target the exact mechanisms involved in stress and anxiety. So what's the first really big structural change that the research shows?
Well, one of the most significant things we see documented is a decrease in the neurological connections to what's called the medial prefrontal cortex. It's often nicknamed the me center. And it's heavily linked to that kind of self-referential thinking, rumination, stress, anxiety. Basically, it's the part of the brain that tends to make everything feel personal, maybe even catastrophic.
Okay, wait. If we're quieting down the me center, does that mean we become less driven? Or maybe less aware of genuine threats or things we need to pay attention to for self-preservation?
That's a really common question and a good one, but the research suggests pretty much the opposite, actually. You're not really quieting the parts that let you plan or act effectively. What you're quieting is more like the default mode network when it's generating unnecessary worry and fear. You're creating a kind of buffer zone.
Buffer zone. Yeah, that makes sense. That buffer zone feels crucial. And while that sort of stress-related center might be shrinking, we're also seeing growth in areas we actually want to strengthen, right?
Absolutely. Regular practice is shown to cause an increase in gray matter. And gray matter is critical for things like emotional regulation, planning, problem solving, all that executive function stuff. We also see increased cortical thickness, which is directly linked to better learning and memory. And back on the stress side of things, the amygdala, the brain's main alarm bell for fear and threat, it actually decreases in size.
A structural shrinkage of the fear center itself. Wow. Okay, that really explains the kind of wide-ranging results we're seeing in clinical settings then. The documented benefits go way beyond just, simple relaxation.
Oh, yeah. The list is pretty extensive now, and it's supported by countless clinical trials. We see clear effectiveness in reducing stress, anxiety, depression, even things like chronic pain, insomnia, and high blood pressure. And it fundamentally improves your ability to sustain attention and focus.
And the sources gave some concrete numbers on this, which I think really makes it tangible. We're not necessarily talking about tiny incremental changes that take decades either.
That's right. One study found that just 3 weeks of consistent practice led to a 23% increase in compassion and, get this, a 57% reduction in aggression. We also have data showing that even just 10 days of practice can lower perceived stress levels by about 14%. So the results can show up relatively quickly.
Yeah, this feels like it's moving beyond just general wellness now. When you see results like that, it really starts to look like performance enhancement. And we are seeing high stakes environments adopting this. You mentioned athletes, like the Seattle Seahawks using tactical breathing and cognitive behavioral training specifically to foster, what was the quote, full presence and conviction in the moment. So mindfulness is training the body to perform better, to thrive under pressure.
Exactly. It becomes a critical performance skill. It allows you to apply your knowledge, your skills with maximum focus and minimal interference from, say, anxiety.
Okay, the scientific payoff seems undeniable. But if this is like a literal blueprint for positive brain change, why does almost everyone I know who tries it seem to give up after like a week? Which brings us neatly to the misconceptions, right? The reasons people stumble when they actually try to put this into practice.
Yes, this is so critical for anyone listening who wants to start. People often come in with expectations that almost guarantee they'll feel like they failed. There are about 5 main things people routinely get wrong about mindfulness.
All right, let's dismantle them. What's number 1?
Number 1, it is not about fixing you. The goal isn't to somehow become this perfect superhuman version of yourself. It's much more about simply waking up to the inner workings of your mind, your emotions, your body, exactly as they are right now.
Okay. And the second one, this feels like the big one, the one that makes people feel like they failed immediately. The idea that you have to stop your thoughts.
Ugh, yes. That causes so much frustration. Mindfulness is not about emptying your mind or stopping thoughts. That's impossible anyway. Thoughts are just, well, mental events. They arise, they pass. The practice is about paying attention to the present moment, non-judgmentally.
Yeah.
Even though, especially when those thoughts are racing around.
Oh, that's such a relief to hear out loud, because I genuinely think maybe 90% of people feel like they've failed the second they realize they can't just switch off their brain. They end up spending the whole session just fighting their own thoughts.
Exactly. And fighting your thoughts is pretty much the opposite of mindfulness. It just generates more inner conflict. Okay, so number 3, it does not belong to any specific religion. I mean, yes, many ancient traditions utilize mindful practices, but awareness itself, that's a universal human capacity. Number 4, it is definitely not an escape from reality. It's actually the opposite. It's choosing to engage with reality as it is, fully and intentionally, not running away from it.
Right, leaning in, not checking out. Okay, and the 5th and final misunderstanding.
Number 5, it is not a panacea. It's not some magic cure-all. While the benefits are clearly vast, it's a skill. It requires effort, it requires consistency, and it's not going to instantly solve every single problem in your life. And maybe the most crucial insight here is that the process of getting lost in thought, noticing you're lost, and then gently returning your attention to your anchor, that is the practice. That cycle of wandering and returning, that's exactly how it's done. You're doing it right when that happens.
So essentially, the goal is the noticing, not the absence of thoughts, not the fighting. Wow, okay, just that frame shift alone could be enough to encourage a beginner to stick with it. All right, let's move from busting myth to the practical how-to then. If you, listening right now, want to start some formal training today, what is step 1?
Okay, we begin with basic formal meditation, usually anchored to the breath. First step, find a comfortable, stable seat. Somewhere you can sit without fidgeting too much. You need a posture that feels alert, but not strained or stiff.
So we're not aiming for ramrod straight military posture, but stability, alertness.
Correct. Yeah. Straighten your upper body, allow the natural curve in your spine, but really try to soften your shoulders, soften your jaw, relax those areas, and then soften your gaze. You can either close your eyes completely, which many people prefer, or just let your eyes fall gently downward. Don't try to focus on anything specific if your eyes are open, just a soft, unfocused gaze.
Okay, posture set, eyes soft. What do we actually do with our attention?
You bring your attention as fully as you can to the physical sensation of breathing. That's it. Just feel the air moving in and out. Notice the subtle rising and falling of your chest, or maybe your belly, whatever is most prominent for you. That physical sensation, that's your anchor. And when your mind inevitably wanders, and it will, to thoughts, plans, sounds, feelings, you simply and kindly bring your attention back to that physical sensation of the breath, over and over and over again. No judgment.
Right, and meditation doesn't always have to mean sitting perfectly still like a statue, does it? The sources also talked about some great structured practices that involve movement or different kinds of awareness, too.
Absolutely. Yeah, the body scan meditation is a fantastic one for building physical awareness, interceptive awareness. For that, you usually lie down, maybe on your back, get comfortable, and then you slowly, deliberately move your attention through each part of your body, often starting at the toes and moving up towards the head. You just notice any sensations tingling, warmth, tension, numbness, whatever, or any emotions or thoughts connected to that part of the body. It's like a physical audit.
That sounds like a really powerful way to maybe uncover tension you didn't even realize you were carrying around.
It really can be. And then there's also walking meditation. For this, you find a quiet space where you can walk back and forth maybe 10 or 15 paces. And you walk slowly, deliberately, focusing your entire attention on the physical experience of walking. Lifting one foot, the feeling of moving it forward, placing it down, the subtle shifts in balance your body makes. It really grounds you in the physical kinesthetic experience of the moment.
Okay, so we have breath, body scan, walking. For the listener who maybe wants a bit more variety or wants to dive a bit deeper beyond just the basic breath anchor, what are some of the other maybe more specialized techniques that can help cultivate specific kinds of clarity or states?
Yeah, there are quite a few, but a couple are worth mentioning briefly. One is called noting. This is where you silently, mentally put a soft label on a strong thought or feeling as it arises. So, for example, if your mind starts racing with plans, you might just gently note planning or thinking. If a wave of worry comes up, you might note anxiety or worry.
Right, and that act of just naming it kind of creates a little bit of distance, doesn't it? It makes the thought or feeling more like an object you're observing rather than something that's completely consuming you.
Precisely. It diffuses it slightly. Another really powerful technique is loving kindness meditation, sometimes called metta. Here, you intentionally focus on different people, starting often with yourself, then loved ones, neutral people, difficult people, eventually all beings, and you direct sincere well wishes toward them. Phrases like, may you be happy, may you be healthy, will you be free from suffering. This practice actively cultivates feelings of compassion, kindness, and connection, and it can diminish feelings of resentment or ill will.
Which feels like a very tangible antidote to a lot of internal unhappiness and friction.
It certainly can be. And one more, perhaps a bit more advanced, is resting awareness, or sometimes called open monitoring. This is generally less focused than anchor-based meditation. You simply let the mind rest. You allow thoughts, sounds, sensations, whatever arises in your field of awareness to just enter and leave without trying to hold on to them or push them away. It's a very open state.
Okay, so lots of options for formal practice. But the ultimate goal, of course, isn't just to be mindful while you're sitting on a cushion for 10 minutes. It's about integrating this awareness into daily life, right?
Yeah.
Transforming those everyday, automatic, reactive moments into more mindful moments.
Exactly. That's where the real benefit comes in. You don't need to be formally meditating to practice mindfulness. You can start really small. Try noticing everyday activities with all 5 senses, like really taste that morning coffee or savor a piece of food. Pay attention to the actual tactile sensation of your hand on a doorknob or a steering wheel. You can also intentionally build in what some people call mindful moment practices. Tiny pauses, like maybe when the phone rings, instead of instantly grabbing it, you just pause, take one conscious breath, then answer.
Like building tiny pockets of non-reactivity right into your existing day. I like that.
Exactly. Little gaps. And remember, too, that research suggests engaging your senses outdoors in nature seems to be particularly beneficial for this practice.
Yeah.
So even just a short mindful walk outside, noticing the sounds, the smells, the feeling of the air, can be incredibly grounding and restorative.
Okay. So bringing this all together, what does this really mean for the person listening who's absorbed all this? They get the science, they understand the how-to, and they're maybe ready to commit.
Well, it means you genuinely have the tools to, first, fundamentally enhance your awareness of your own internal and external world. Second, to dramatically reduce your habitual emotional reactivity. And third, to significantly improve your ability to focus your attention where you want it. And, knowledge is really only valuable when it's understood and then applied. This practice teaches you how to apply your attention much more effectively.
Yeah. The practice itself is often simple, sit, breathe, notice, but we know it's definitely not always easy. It really is a commitment to building a skill over time. And if you want those deeper neurological changes we talked about, the shrinking amygdala, the thicker cortex, you do need that consistency. Maybe think of it less like a chore and more like a commitment to nurturing yourself, perhaps aiming to practice daily, even if it's just for a few minutes, for maybe 6 months or so. That seems to be a time frame where people really start to feel and see those structural shifts solidify.
I think that's a great way to frame it. And, since we know that mindfulness fundamentally trains our ability to focus by literally increasing cortical thickness, and it actively decreases the influence of that me center that drives so much of our automatic, often anxious reactions. Let me leave you, the listener, with maybe a provocative thought to chew on. If mindfulness really begins with that simple act of pausing before reacting, what existing daily habit could you identify, just one, and mindfully pause before doing it this week? Where could you create that first tiny piece of space in your mind between stimulus and response?
That pause. That space that feels like everything, doesn't it? Think about that challenge. Start small, practice that kindness toward your inevitably wandering mind, and maybe enjoy the process of watching those brain changes start to happen. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive.